Dedicated employees are imperative for the success of any company, but they're also imperative because they define who you are. SisterLove, the oldest women-centered sexual reproductive justice organization in the southeastern United States, is proud to present InnerViews, a chance for you to meet our fam, our foot soldiers, our everyday ambassadors that transform brick and mortar into places that unapologetically focus on our commitment to the community.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is another segment of InnerViews, an opportunity for those in our external family to learn more about our internal family here at SisterLove. It's an interview, a casual one, so that you can see a different side of who we're fortunate enough to have work behind the walls here at SisterLove. And today I am honored to be chatting with Aimee Registe, who serves as SisterLove's Policy and Advocacy Program Manager. And let me back up, as I typically have to. My name is Sybil Miller. I am the Director of Communications here at SisterLove, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. Aimee, thank you so very, very much for joining today. This is going to be fun.
Thank you for having me, Sybil. Happy to be here.
First off, everyone, of course, they don't know, but you're fairly new in this role. Would you mind sharing how you landed here at SisterLove?
So after law school, I applied to be an If When How fellow, and I ended up receiving that fellowship. And so during that fellowship year, I interviewed at a few different places, but I really liked SisterLove's mission in the fact that I would be able to work with, help advocate for Black people in particular. And so I ended up choosing SisterLove as my placement organization. Thankfully, Days On and the Policy and Advocacy Program Manager at the time really liked me, and so they chose me as well. And so I was an If When How fellow from 2020 to 2021. After my fellowship ended, I was offered a job and I accepted this position.
And we're the ones that are grateful. And what I also would like to share with folks is that she did all of that while taking and passing the bar. And I can't imagine how difficult that was, but certainly we are so very happy you landed with us and decided to stay when the opportunity presented itself. So give us a little fun fact about you, something that none of us, your internal family or outside, knows about you.
Fun fact about me. When I was a child, I think I was under 5 years old, I was jumping on the bed and I ended up hitting the corner of my dresser with my face first. And I have
not laughing, but yeah.
I know, yeah. It
in
was
there.
Yeah. And so I have stitches right next to my left eye from when I hit that corner, and my parents freaked out, and it was a traumatic experience, but it's something that I think back on, and every time I look at my face, I think about that and how lucky I am to be able to see in my left eye because of that. So yeah, I don't think that's something that I've ever said
shared with us.
Yeah.
Well, since we're sharing stories about when we're crazy kids, when I was 5 years old, I lived on a street that had a hill, like any hill you want to imagine in San Francisco. I grew up in upstate New York, but for whatever reason, this hill existed. And you know, hills to kids are like, it's like a magnet. I have to go down this hill. And my mother turned her back literally. I had a tricycle. There's the issue. It was a tricycle. And my mother turned her back literally for like 5 seconds. And I made it up this hill, because I was already maybe at the bottom of the hill. All I had to do was not even go on to the top. I scooted up almost maybe at the middle, but it was still a very high level. And at first it was hilarious. I remember having fun And then it started to pick up so much so that I couldn't even keep my feet on the pedals because the pedals were going so fast, but I was still laughing. I thought it was hilarious until I hit a pothole, became airborne, and went into a pole. And literally, I know my mother fainted when I said, "Mommy, look," I saw a little blood, and I was just like, and I had broken my nose, and I still have the scar. And I know people think we're morbid. I do chuckle when I sometimes focus on that scar because I can remember how fun it was until I hit that pole. And I tease my mother about it all the time. I was like, you wimped out on me, So I do sometimes go both ways. Think how lucky he was. It could have been anything. I remember missing a lot of kindergarten. That's pretty much all I do remember. But I mean, those things make childhood interesting and frightening for parents. Let's just put it like that. So yeah, I'll share with. We'll go neck and neck on the stories. We have scars to prove it, right?
Yes.
What does Aimee? Just curiosity. And I'm asking these questions of everyone, and I'm never getting the same answer. So I'm motivated by it. What does working for SisterLove mean for you now that you are in this role?
So I became interested in reproductive justice when I was in undergrad. It was something that I never really pursued. Like I attempted to volunteer at Planned Parenthood a few times, but I became interested in it. And it wasn't until I found SisterLove after law school, I realized how inclusive of Black people reproductive justice is. And it wasn't until then that I did the research and found out, this was a phrase that was coined by Black women in the 90s. And so working at SisterLove and being able to be at a reproductive justice organization that advocates for Black people is really important to me. When I graduated from law school, I really wanted to do a job where I would feel like I'm having a positive impact. I'm doing some sort of social good. And working here, I feel that. Like every time when I'm done working for the day, I feel positively about what I've done, whether it's sign-on letters. There was one sign-on letter that had to do with abortion rights and access for Black people in Pennsylvania that we recently signed on to. Whether it's that or an amicus brief that is just defending the rights of Black women and girls to be free from violence, from sexual violence. Those things really matter to me and I really feel strongly about them. And so being able to work at an organization that at its core centers Black people and Black women and girls and their experiences, I think that's the most fulfilling thing about this job.
And to be able to work with others that feel that same way, there's a synergy that I've not felt in any of my other previous positions. And so I absolutely concur with what you said. It's magic, actually. And it's magic because it's purposeful. And that's kind of how I look at it as well. I know you haven't been with SisterLove too long, but is there a profound experience, one in particular thus far, that sticks with you that you wouldn't mind sharing?
I guess there are two that come to mind.
Good.
So during my fellowship year, I helped co-write an amicus brief in the Irwin County Detention Center case. And for those who don't know, Dawn Wooten was a nurse who was working at an ICE-run facility for detained immigrants. And she blew the whistle and let people know that forced hysterectomies and forced sterilizations were occurring in these facilities, in this particular one in Irwin County, Georgia. And I helped co-write with the Policy and Advocacy Program manager at the time. We wrote part of an amicus brief in that case, just informing the court about the history of forced sterilizations and how it has been used to control Black women in particular, but also just women of color in general. And we went over the historical context and also the legal framework. And I feel like that was a really pivotal point in my fellowship. And I really appreciated the fact that I was able to have that experience. And then also, I guess another thing is I'm working on currently still a legislative guide that we're going to disseminate to legislators in Georgia. And I feel like that having like a written document with all of the policies that we support and all of the topics, covering all the range of topics that interconnect with reproductive justice, I feel like I really am proud of that.
Those are two very pivotal experiences, and I'd be proud of those too. I have to tell you that I remember, of course, reading that amicus brief that you speak about, and it was empowering to know that SisterLove had a role in that. It speaks to everything that we represent every day.
Right.
And it's things like that that make it all the while worthwhile to do what we do every day. Even though we all don't do the same thing, it all contributes to that bottom line in reproductive justice. And if for people, there are people that say, well, what does that mean? And the quickest answer I can say of the definition to that is the word justice should tell you what it means. It doesn't, we could break it down as to what falls under the umbrella of reproductive justice. But if you just lean on the word justice, you'll know what it is we fight for every day for Black women. And I say Black and brown women, and for all women, for human beings, period, but specific to the fight or how it affects Black women. And so I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm sure many of our colleagues would concur with that as well, that those are moving experiences, and you're very fortunate to have had that so very early on in your career.
Right.
So we'll be looking for you to do more of that.
Yes, I'm looking for more opportunities. Yes.
And teach all of us, the importance, because I think sometimes we get into our silos. I do communications, but there are gray areas where you and I work together, which is awesome. What I love about this job is not just the fact that it's intergenerational, that we represent all age groups and backgrounds. What I do love also is that I learn something every single day. And again, it's purposeful. And I can't say that that's always been something that I've had the privilege of saying for jobs. So yeah, that was awesome. What do you think your supershiro power is, Aimee? Put your cape on.
Yeah. I guess my ability to empathize with other people and to put myself in their shoes, because I understand that, like, while I am a Black woman and there are certain marginalizations to my existence, I'm also privileged in certain ways. I grew up in a 2-parent household, middle class. I was able to go to law school. And so I think it's my superpower, I guess, would be my ability to put myself in the shoes of somebody who didn't grow up that way, who may be Black and trans and disabled or, undocumented. Like, those are experiences that I just didn't have due to my background. And so I think that would be my power.
Would you say that it's beyond just being your power, it is your obligation to maybe let others also try to share in that experience of being empathetic?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree that it is an obligation of the work that we do.
Yes.
And also like the policy and advocacy side, because I am advocating for people who are experiencing, a more trying time than I am.
Right.
And so, yeah, I definitely believe it's an obligation to the work that we do, for sure.
And I do too. And for those of you, if you hear us refer to her department or her program as PAP, that's what we're referring to. It's Policy Advocacy Program, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I had to think about it. So that's we've nicknamed it PAP. So forgive us if we use jargon. I love this question because again, it runs the gambit. And of course, I don't want this to be anytime soon, but when your journey is finally over with SisterLove and you go on to something else, What is it you think you'd like to be remembered for?
What would I like to be remembered for? I guess approaching my role as like the Policy and Advocacy Program Manager with empathy and understanding. And I'd like to be remembered as like a manager who has feelings and understands, you know, when my colleagues are going through something, that they can come to me and I'm willing to help take on the load while they deal with their personal problems. So I'd like to be remembered as somebody who just was there for other people, whether they're in my department or not, just somebody that they can rely on if they ever need help.
I think that's beautiful. And pardon me for bringing this up, but you know, that's not usually what lawyers are what people think of when they hear talk about a lawyer. So continue on that trend, break that stereotype. I know for a fact, if anyone can do it, you do it. And you prove that, Aimee, every day. We have not worked together much longer than a year, but I absolutely have enjoyed the time that you have been on board. And like I said, I've learned something usually each time we have an encounter or have to work together on something.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Lastly, see, this wasn't painful, was it?
No, it wasn't. Not at all.
What quote or saying or motivational statement, poem speaks to you and or motivates you?
So there's two that come to mind. The first one is a poem by Warsan Shire. She's a Black immigrant woman. I believe she grew up in the UK, and her poetry is most known because Beyonce used some of her poetry in her Lemonade album. Right. And so her poetry book, I don't want to butcher the name. I'm going to try to find the name of it.
Go right ahead. This is a time, this is a learning session. We just talked about that. I'd like to know.
Right. Okay. So one poem that I really like is called For Women Who Are Difficult to Love by Warsan Shire. And I think it's like really empowering to know that it's from a Black woman's perspective on aspects about herself that people have tried to convince her are difficult to love, and just learning to like reclaim that and be empowered by the things that people have, you know, negatively attributed to her. And then there's also a poem called Wild Geese by Mary Oliver, which I really like. That poem has to do more so with
is it a long poem?
It is not. Would you like me to read it?
I would.
Okay. All right. So this is Mary Oliver's Wild Geese, and it says, "You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clear blue sky, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination. Calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things." And yeah, so that's
awesome.
Yeah,
Beautifully written.
Yes, it is.
Beautifully written.
I think that Mary Oliver's poems speak to me because they deal with, you know, dealing with like depression and things like that. She talks about that, but trying to realize that you are important to this world, like your contribution of just being alive is enough, and kind of romanticizing everyday things like wild geese flying outside your window, or just nature, and just being able to like experience that. So yeah, that's always been one of my favorite poems.
You know what I like about that poem, what I take away from that is that sometimes we look for something to be or people feel they have to be extraordinary in everything they do. And there is beauty in simplicity. There is beauty in being ordinary, as long as you are making a contribution. Doesn't always have to be fanfare. And for some people, it never will be, but they still matter. And I think that that's what I pull from that reading. It's beautifully written and expressed. I can see why you really like that. So thank you so very much for sharing that.
Of course.
I guess if I were to sum up Aimee, everybody, to me, I'm always learning something from Aimee. So it didn't disappoint me in this very short chat today. So Aimee, I really appreciate you, and I'm so very happy that you are on board with SisterLove. And we look for exciting things and able to break through things that are unjust while you are here with us. And I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed talking with you this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Sybil. It was a pleasure to learn more about you. And it's literally been a pleasure working with you for this past year. Really liked the work that we've been able to do together. Yeah, and I think it's great. Important to highlight that as important as PAP is, the other departments are equally as important.
I agree.
And, you know, communications does a lot. Whenever we're writing something to publish, we run it by you to make sure, you know, it's representing us as authentically and as accurately as possible. So thank you so much for your contributions.
Oh, that's the least I can do. You do a lot for our brand. And so does everyone else. And that's why we really do regard ourselves as a family. We're small but mighty, and every day we prove that. And I couldn't be prouder to work for SisterLove. So thank you, Dazon Dixon Diallo, for giving us the outlet to always be ourselves and to make a difference. Before I close, and I do this on every segment, this would not exist, nor would a lot of stuff exist for our public-facing tasks without Bryson Edwards, the silent party, who's not silent, folks, and as to what he does for this organization. So thank you to our digital strategist, Bryson Edwards, and to everyone. We'll see you next time on another segment of InnerViews. Thanks again, Aimee.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.